Al C. Wilson. What an absolute pleasure to speak to Al. He's a personal coach, but much more than that. He promotes journaling. He promotes meditation. He promotes wellness, loving yourself. We just take it for granted that we don't talk to ourselves the way we would talk to others. It's a great conversation on that. He has these great car chronicles where he gives out just great advice, talks about the trifecta of love, loving yourself, loving others. I think you'll be surprised what the third is. He's got great advice on how to prioritize. When you hear his story, I'll just give you a couple. Grew up in a poor neighborhood, went to 10 different elementary schools. Some other issues with the family, you'll get to understand that and learn that a little bit more, but how he turned it all around and how he helps other now in coaching, in well-being. I open up the conversation with, it's always a discussion when somebody wants to get healthier. Is it about losing weight or is it about being healthy? There's a distinction there, I feel, and so does Al. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family, in their passion, in their careers, and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Very excited to talk to you, Al C. Wilson. Thanks so much for your time today. So what's the difference? What should be the higher priority? Losing weight or getting healthier?
Getting healthier. And that definition is different for everyone. That's one of the things that we talk about. It's like finding out what that person's definition of healthy means to them.
Because if you ask, we have a terrible epidemic in the country with obesity, but if you ask somebody, what's your definition of health? They'll say, well, 20 pounds less or 5 pounds less. Generally, they'll go right towards weight.
You know what? You'd be surprised. Sometimes, I have people, they say, I don't really care about the scale. I want to feel better. I want to have more energy. I want to be able to spend time with my kids. So we like to dig into, what does that healthy mean to you? And why is that important?
And how do you do that? How do you get them to answer the hard questions, Al?
It's just good conversation. I think part of it is people want to know, can you help me? Once they know that you can help them and you've positioned yourself as a resource for them, because that's really, all right, most of what we do and the information we really pay attention to is, does it help me survive and thrive? Those are the two things. We're just wired that way. So if something is helping us survive and thrive, then the questions, just like you and I today, is just good conversation.
Because most of the time, I'm guessing here, but it's really the accountability that people lack, right? I mean, they get a program, but then they need somebody to make sure they follow it and they go through it.
Yes, it's accountability, it's consistency, and we live in a day and age where you can click a button, you get an answer. And health and even mental wellness, it just doesn't work that way. It takes work. It takes discipline. It takes commitment to yourself. So having somebody to say, you didn't get here overnight, you're not going to get to where you want to be overnight. And giving them an idea of what that looks like and what that work looks like, having a system and a plan helps greatly.
Yeah, I remember, I gained a lot of weight, and, I remember the doctor telling me, you got to lose it. You're not going to see your daughter graduate. And I remember thinking to myself, I got myself here, and now I'm going to get myself out. It's a really healthy thing you just said there about didn't take a day to get here. You've been had bad habits for a long time. Now you've got to break them.
Yes. Yeah. And most of what I do is the mindset stuff. It's the perspective, and everything that we start or everything that we do starts with how we feel about ourselves. So we have a relationship with our bodies. We have a relationship with health and exercise. So it's tapping into, what is that relationship like? What were your lifestyle habits that led you here? And what is it attached to? It's usually attached to a feeling, an emotion, an event, something that they've gone through, and being able to shift their perspective on what that was, and that you don't have to continue down that path. That's what helps people change the most. And that's what helped me.
Yeah. In one of your posts there on Instagram, people tell you I'm too busy to work out. So you're saying you don't have time for yourself?
Right.
You could still eat.
Yes.
Still, it's just that has to be reframed, like you said.
Yeah. You know what? I did the same thing though. I remember I got married at 25. I had 4 kids before I was 30. And I remember giving all of my time and my attention and my energy. Those are the 3 things we spend, by the way. We spend time, we spend our energy, so giving all of our attention and everything to my job and my kids. And I saved myself for last. Like, I would be at work on a conference call, and the cafeteria would close at 2:00, and it became a running joke. Like, they knew I was going to be running up there at 2:00 because I literally would forget to eat. So I've gone through this process where I had to change, my relationship with myself, putting myself first, because we've been taught that self-care is being selfish, and thinking about yourself is selfish, and it's really not. I'm sure you've heard other people say, when you're on a plane, they tell you to put your oxygen mask on first. Right. Put your life vest on first. Like, if you're going down, who can you help? So it's shifting that mindset that self-care, you should be the most important thing to you every single day, because you can serve other people better.
How are you going to serve others better if you can't serve yourself?
Yes. It doesn't matter what your mission is in life, what your purpose is, what your talents or your gifts are. If you don't feel well, and if you're not at your best, it's harder to get that stuff done. That's why most singers don't perform when they don't feel well.
You have these, Al, you've got these great kind of car chronicles where you kind of, you're in Instagram where you're talking, and this is right along what we're talking about, grace. You talk about 5 ways of giving yourself some grace.
Yes.
Silence, being alone, kind to yourself, non-judgment to yourself and others, daily affirmations, speak truth out loud. Wonderful, wonderful points.
It's the stuff that we weren't taught. We weren't taught to be kind to ourselves. We were taught to be kind to others. And so we have this thing, we're just wired this way, where we are our own worst critic. And it came from a place years ago where we had to protect ourselves. And we didn't have the technology and GPS and all this other stuff. So you had to question yourself in order to survive. Same thing with fear. Fear was our protection mechanism. Fear was there because there was something out there bigger than us, right? that we had to look out for, many, many years ago. But it's kind of turned on us. It becomes this self-judgment. And we say things to ourselves that we would never say to someone we loved. So we have to shift how we treat ourselves. We have to say, instead of saying the negative things we say to ourselves, say, I'm growing, I'm learning, I'm getting better. right? Give yourself a little bit of grace to grow. I mean, grass grows, why not us? So,
Mm.
that's really what it's about. Self-love, self-care, and being patient with ourselves, even more than we would someone else.
Giving yourself more patience than others. Yeah, it's very true. Al, on your website, you do a great job of conveying what you do, what you and your group does, and you have these 10 statements, and it's preceded by I have been where you are, and the 10 statements just they're short and they're brief, but they blow me away. I grew up in a poor neighborhood. I went to 10 different elementary schools. My mother struggled with her mental health and drugs. My father was addicted to drugs and absent from my early life. I had to figure it all on my own. I've been divorced. I was stuck in a corporate job with a glass ceiling. My first business venture failed. I felt lost. I invested in my growth, and now you found purpose. What a wonderful journey. Not a wonderful, but a noteworthy.
Yes.
Yeah. And what do you attribute to this turnaround?
One of the best things that I learned to do, well, I'll rewind that. What
Please.
happened for me, I was in my late 30s, maybe early 40s, and I noticed patterns in my life. There was this pattern of being able to kind of shut off my emotions, push things aside, not deal with what I was going through. I had a victim mentality. And what I mean by that is everything that happened was happening to me.
Mm.
And I wasn't self aware enough to really figure out what my part was. But when I recognized these patterns, it was a moment of, I need to change. I'd spent a few years working on my body, and that started this journey for me because fitness had a way of holding me more accountable.
Mm.
If Monday's chest day, you can't put that off because Tuesday's legs, for example. And I used to be a chronic procrastinator. That's just one area of how it helped me, but it helped me develop more discipline, more focus. And I noticed these patterns in my life, and I had to figure out, where did it come from? Like, why do I keep repeating the same behaviors? And for me, it was attached to traumatic moments in my childhood. It was attached to my relationship with my mother, the relationship with my father. And most of us don't learn how to dissect those moments. We hold on to them and it plays out in our life in ways that we may not realize. So one of the things that I do when I'm coaching people is, we call it reflect, reframe, and refresh, where you're able to take a moment, reflect on that moment, and you start to think about, how has this moment impacted me? But you pull the gratitude out of it. How did it make me better? For example, I went to 10 different elementary schools. I've never met a stranger. I can talk to anyone. I'm a great communicator. I communicate well, I should say, because I didn't have a choice. I had to make new friends because I lived in a lot of different places. I have 6 aunts. I lived with every single one of them before I was 13. So I had to learn how to meet people and make new friends. So instead of me taking that moment and allowing it to hold me back, I use it as fuel. So you reshape that moment.
Mm.
Your refresh is, what do you do next? How do you use it for fuel? If you can find gratitude in those moments that felt painful before, that hurt you, that were traumatic, you can take that into your current life and you can get through some of those moments that may not be as difficult. And that's some of the things that I help people with when I'm coaching them.
Mm.
Use it for fuel.
You said that you notice patterns. Like, give me an example. Like, some things you were just repeating over that were negative. Explain what you mean by that, please.
So when I was 13 years old, as you mentioned, my mother struggled with her mental health. She suffered from schizophrenia. And in the 70s, we didn't have this large
Mm.
focus on mental health. I mean, we all lived in neighborhoods where we saw people walking down the street that were pushing carts, that were blowing whistles. It was just one of those things. No one really knew how to deal with it. So my mother self-medicated with drugs to stop the voices in her head and everything else. And there was a moment when I was 13 years old. I went to my aunt's house to spend a weekend. Well, my mother burned my house down. She was high on drugs. I mean, there's a lot more to the story, but long story short, I went to stay for a weekend and I ended up living with my aunt for 5 years. So I was I don't like to say I was a spoiled child, but when I was younger, my mother and I had a really great relationship. So you take the woman that you love the most and just remove her from your life. And as a kid, you don't think about, I had to shut my emotions off from that. She was never my mother again. From that moment on, she lived in a nursing home. So that relationship was gone at 13 years old. So when it came to my relationship with women, from that moment of being 13, I went from girlfriend to girlfriend every single time. And it was always something traumatic. And I nicknamed it burning down the house. I would always do something where I couldn't go back. And it was this behavior pattern up until the time that I got married. That's when it stopped. But until that moment, and you're probably talking 12 years of just going from person to person, burning down that house so I couldn't go back. And then I did it with jobs. And it was always someone else's fault instead of mine. And I noticed that pattern, in my relationships with people at work and in my personal life. And that was one of the main things I wanted to break. I knew I had to grow and change from that.
And recognizing these patterns in your life, when you're coaching people, do you start to recognize some patterns in them?
They actually recognize the patterns. As you start to ask questions that make people really think about where they are and how they got there. And it's a question as simple as, where do you think that's coming from? Most of us have a feeling. We have that, you can call it intuition, our inner spirit. If you really tune into it, that's one of the reasons why meditation is so great, by the way, is it allows you to have this relationship with your spirit. I like to call it internal Al, right? Have that relationship with yourself. They start to uncover some of these patterns on their own.
And then from there, you can learn and you can start to reflect, reframe, then refresh.
Yeah, reflect, reshape, refresh.
And that seems to me, that formula right out there, Al, seems to me to be the formula that you've probably employed your whole life but didn't realize it.
That's part of it. Figuring out how to handle it, to me, is where I really needed to do the work. And being honest with myself and saying, I'm exactly where I am because of the decisions that I've made. And it's a powerful, realization. Like, no one put me here. No one did anything to me. I'm here because of me. No one's going to come save me. No one owes me anything. It's up to me to grow, to become more self-aware, to hone my skills, my gifts, my talents, and create the kind of life that I really want.
You mentioned meditation. When did you get introduced to that? How often do you do it?
I meditate every day, sometimes several times a day. I got introduced to meditation. I have my unofficial mentors. Deepak Chopra is one of them. But I got introduced to meditation through Deepak and other people and a few friends of mine who developed a meditation practice. And in the beginning, meditation can be tough because we surround ourselves with stimulation. We intentionally distract ourselves. So to be quiet with your thoughts and have that relationship with your thoughts, it's one of the best things that we could ever do. And I would say, think of it like this in the beginning of your meditation. If you were driving down the street, you wouldn't pay attention to every house, every car, every tree. Like, everything that you pass doesn't deserve your full attention. When you meditate, your thoughts are the same way. Not every thought deserves your full attention. Let it flow like water. Let those thoughts come, let them go. Focus on your breath and let it be for a minute. And the deeper you develop in your meditation practice, the more in tune you are with yourself. Joey, I'm going to tell you, I found out that I had cancer through meditation.
Wow.
It kept coming up in my meditation. I love meditating in the shower, by the way. It's the sound of the water and everything else. So a few times I just kept hearing, "You have cancer." I'm like, "No, I don't." It's like, "You have cancer." "No, I don't." Over and over. Till one day, yeah, I had a couple of symptoms. And when it happened, I knew what it was. Went to the emergency room. A week later, there's a mass that's covering my entire right kidney. It was so large, they had to remove my entire kidney. And I knew it already. As soon as he said it, I said, "It's cancer." And I told my doctor, the last month or so, it's been coming up in my meditation. And I just denied it. So you can have that relationship with yourself and it'll give you direction.
That's remarkable, Al. Often when I talk to people about meditation, the hardest stumbling block you said in the beginning is trying to separate yourself from your thoughts. People kind of put them together, and like you use traffic, I use traffic as well. Look at the traffic going by each one of the cars as one of your thoughts, but you're away from it, you're looking at it. So
Right.
try to separate yourself that way, and they don't all devote, don't need your time, like you mentioned. I've never. Go ahead, please.
Or judgment. I think
Mm,
one of the things that we all struggle with is judgment. We judge our thoughts on a consistent basis. So one of the things that I help people with is just taking moments in our day where we practice non-judgment.
mm.
We don't judge our thoughts, we don't judge our actions, we don't judge other people. Just taking those moments, it could be 10 minutes of non-judgment in your day. And it helps you start to develop different habits, ways of replacing some of those things that don't serve you. So in meditation, it's being able to just allow yourself to be and being comfortable with those thoughts, regardless of what they are. Don't judge them.
Mm. I've never heard. Congratulations on finding that, and I assume you're better now from the cancer.
Yes, I'm one kidney lighter, but it just like in life, nothing that's ever left me was meant to serve me. So anything that's been removed from my life, it obviously was not there to be a blessing to me or to serve me. So right kidney had to go. I'm better for it.
Nothing in my life left me. Please repeat that. It's profound.
Nothing in my life that's left me was ever meant to serve me. That
Man,
includes people, jobs, you name it. If it's gone, it wasn't meant to serve you.
that's wonderful. Do you journal as well, Al?
Every morning,
Wow.
journaling, it's it's a powerful form of creation. Like everything that's ever been created starts with a thought, Joe.
Hmm.
I don't care what it is. If you really think about it, everything that's ever been created started with a thought. So when you journal, you take a thought and you make it a tangible thing. It's just like goals. If you haven't written your goals down, it's not a thing yet. But if you write it down, now it's something that you've created. It's
Hmm.
the first step in creation. Whatever, I would say, religious text, right? If it was really important, it was written. It was written because now it's a thing. So journaling is very, very powerful. It's not just a way to get your thoughts out on paper. It's a way to create. And it's the first step in creating the kind of life you want.
The process of writing things down as I think of it, even while we're talking now. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the thought of just writing and then my eyes seeing it helps so much to bring that thought to life. And it's recorded now. Meditation and journaling, it's a common theme amongst the great people like yourself I get to speak to. It's just it it really kind of frames and it separates and it provides some focus. You talked about goal setting. You do talk about that a lot. Writing down the goal is one of your main points.
Yes. So I have it's a reflection journal. is what I like to call it. And it's one of those things, it's my gift to my people while I'm coaching them, because it allows them to take their morning. It helps them develop a morning routine. Like, routines are important. So having a morning routine where you spend some time in meditation, you may exercise, stretch, whatever it is, but you attach these new habits to current habits. So meditation, whether it's journaling, but that first morning routine is you start to write down what you appreciate, what you're grateful for. That's, one of the first things. I think sometimes we have a habit of, we get up and we think about what we want to change, what we don't enjoy, what's wrong in our life. But start your day off with gratitude is very powerful. What are you grateful for? What do you appreciate? And then you start to think about, or write down, I should say, the things that you want to accomplish in your day. Start to set your intentions. But not only that, I like to call it a to-be list, not a to-do list. How do you want to grow today? What do you want to be today? You want to be more attentive to whatever. You want to give more of your attention to this, because whatever you give your attention to grows in your life. So it's part attention, intent, and then there may be a couple of tasks or things that you want to accomplish. And if there's one thing that you could do today or become today that would make this day great, what would it be? So that's kind of that morning routine. And then there's an evening routine where you start to reflect. What did you learn from today? How did your challenges help you grow? How do you feel about it? So it's that self-check process. And it allows you to pull the gratitude out of your day, to take some challenges, find growth. So that's one of my gifts to my people when I coach them is, let's start to be more intentional about our time and our energy and where we give our attention to, and document it. And it's a powerful growth tool.
You ever find a situation? So when I journal in the morning, I usually put the date, the time, where I am, because I travel a lot, and then I put some things that I have gratitude for. I put some goals down, and it almost gets to a point, Al, it's a little bit routine. I try to take a moment. Okay, where's my real gratitude right now? And I think family, I think health, I think friends, I think lifestyle, I think opportunity. But sometimes you find yourself repeating the same thing. Do you have any tools to kind of cope with keeping it fresh and really kind of feeling it?
It's okay to repeat some of the same things, but I would also say have other things in your day that help you grow, right? Whether it's reading a book or a great podcast like this one, something where you can get more wisdom, more growth, things that help you, whatever that gap is in your life. Because we all have we like to call it the difference between the situation you're in and where you want to be. That's your gap. So something that helps you close the gap will also help you find more things that you appreciate or that you're grateful for.
That's a very good perspective. You talk about the trifecta of love in one of your posts: loving yourself, loving them or others, and then just love the idea of love.
Yes.
It's wonderful.
The trifecta of love actually came from the relationship that I'm in right now and from my growth. So I found this amazing woman. I used to think, how they say, Joe, when you find this person, you'll just know. You'll just know. I said, yeah, whatever. I don't believe that at all, until I met her. And within a couple moments of spending time with her, I remember going, like, this is how it's supposed to be. Like, I should be at peace. I should be laughing. I should be enjoying my time and just clicking. You know what I mean? Like, we all have this vibe. We actually do have a vibration. We all do. We're all bundles of information and energy. So we vibrate. But the trifecta of love is, if you haven't learned to love yourself, it's so much harder for you to love someone else. And it's harder for you to be a safe place for people to love you. So the best relationship and the most important relationship you have is the one with yourself. So whether it's giving yourself grace, speaking kindly to yourself, but just loving you for who you are and being unapologetically yourself. So that's the first one. Really loving the person that you're with. Like, when you love someone, you always want the best for them. You don't try to minimize them. You don't want to limit them. You're that safe space for them to be their genuine true self without judgment. And then wanting to be in love, like loving the idea of giving yourself to someone, to something, to serving people. Like love is also service. So if you have that in your life, and everything else is just better.
Mm. And then the actual idea of love, that it exists, that you didn't think it was, going to
Yeah,
happen, but then it clicked.
absolutely. I would say that I'm just going to focus on work. I'm going to be
Mm,
successful and by myself. Like
mm,
that's where I was in life. And one day we were talking. I actually told her that. I was like, "Yeah, I'm just going to focus on this. I'm going to be by myself." She said, "No, you won't." I was like, "No, yes, I am. I'm just going to be by myself and just focus." She's like, "No, you won't." She said it 3 times, Joe.
mm, mm, mm.
Lo and behold, a few months later, and it's been the best. I wanted 4 things. I used to have this list of the person I wanted. What
Mm,
she looked like, what she was,
mm,
and I had to let that go. So there were 4 things I said I wanted in my life. I wanted love, peace, harmony, and laughter.
mm.
That's what I wanted. Love, peace, harmony, and laughter. If you have those 4 things, they will take care of everything else.
Yeah.
My house is peaceful. We laugh and enjoy our time with ourselves, our kids. There's harmony. We communicate well. We look out for each other. Like everything just works. And the love is like nothing I've ever experienced.
And without the experiences and that you had before this point, you wouldn't have been able to get here. So often we make these, big relationship decisions of marriage and things like, and when we're so young, when we're just kids
Right.
out, and so now you're at a point where you think you know what you want, and then when you found it, you have it, and you change those goals, and you're making them together. It's harmony is a wonderful word when I think about that right there, that whole process.
Yes, I remember I got married at 25 and it was a lot I didn't know, Joe.
Right, right. We're
It was so
children.
much I didn't know.
We're a
Yeah.
child. Men in their 20s. I mean, women mature a little earlier, but men in their 20s. My goodness, what I didn't know what I wanted. Well, I don't know. I, I was a child. It's
Yes.
but hopefully you have children. It straightens you out a bit, and you do talk about spirituality and how to explore it in a lot of your posts. Talk to me about your view on that. And there's some that view spirituality very differently.
Spirituality to me starts with your relationship with yourself,
Mm,
and my definition is spirituality and religion are 2 different things,
mm,
right? Religion is man's way of organizing spirituality.
mm,
Spirituality starts with your relationship with yourself, your spirit, whatever higher power, whatever name, universe, God, whatever you call that energy, source energy, it's being connected. And it's being connected to someone, something that's bigger than you. Like the word universe it actually means one song.
mm,
We're all connected. There's very little difference between our DNA and the DNA of a tree. We're all made of the same stuff. It's the organization of the stuff that makes us different, but it's the same compounds. We share like 98% of our DNA with the banana.
hmm.
Crazy, right? So it's the organization of the stuff that makes us different. So that's when I think about spirituality, to me, it's connection to source. It's connection to myself. It's connection to source and being able to tap into that energy in those relationships.
Is it possible to be healthy and to get healthy without a spiritual perspective?
It is. I believe everything is spiritual. Everything that we
Mm,
do is spiritual, you know, because it starts with us, whether it's health, wellness, mental health, our jobs, like how we show up in those moments. So we were taught to fill roles at a very early age. When we were born, we were someone's son, we were someone's daughter. We became someone's student. We became someone's athlete, their brother, their sister. We're never really taught who we are. Like we're taught how to navigate the outside world. You know, and growing up, our parents, our guardians, whoever it is, our coaches, they are our guides, right? And it's this moment where we hit college, right? We have this growth moment. But think about, like, when you're in your 20s, who's really there and who are you willing to listen to that still is your guide? So I had someone ask me before, like, do people really need a coach? Absolutely, because coaches have coaches. In the NFL, other coaches go to Bill Belichick, right? They go to Coach K in college because coaches need coaches. You know, my name is actually Alfred. So Batman isn't Batman without Alfred. He made all the cool toys that made Batman Batman. He gave him the tools, the resources, the techniques, and everything he needed to be Batman. So that's my job. That's where I come into play. You know, so everything we do is spiritual, but it's learning how to navigate that. And it's not something that we learn at an early age. We fill roles, and then we find ourselves in our 30s and 40s trying to figure out who we are because we've given so much of ourselves to other people. So it's all spiritual because it starts with you.
Is it possible to teach what you've learned and what you coach so well at, Al, to somebody in their early 20s without that kind of maturity perspective?
Today it is. Years ago, I would have said it's tough. The internet has found a way to get information to kids or people in their 20s. I don't want to say kids just because I have kids in their 20s. But, you know, they're further ahead on the awareness scale. You know, I'm coaching several people in their 20s right now. My newest client just started with me Saturday. She's 27. And she knows that there are these things in her life, her relationship with her parents, this need for a better relationship with her family, not being satisfied with her job. So it's absolutely possible because they're more aware of it. Mental health is important to them. Like, they're quietly quitting jobs because they feel like companies don't care about their mental health. They will quit a job. They will call off. They're way more focused on their mental health than we were in our 20s.
Yeah, it's a really good point. There's a lot more. We see music artists, we see athletes, we see all these people talking about mental health, and it's good. It can get better, but it's certainly better than it's ever been. I feel I get to talk to people as well who know a lot about it. You also mentioned a coach earlier. When somebody says to me they don't need a coach, I said, Tiger Woods had a coach. Coach helps you. People. Like, what's the difference between a therapist and a coach to you?
A therapist or a psychiatrist, either one, they're going to prescribe certain things. A coach, like, we have way more leeway to talk about other parts of your life. And it doesn't matter. Coach doesn't have all the answers. And it's not our job to give someone all the answers. It's helping them uncover the answers. That's our real goal. It's our purpose, is to help you uncover the answers, for you to get a better idea and awareness of where you are now, what limiting beliefs you have, giving you techniques and helping you uncover techniques. So it's amazing, Joe. I'll ask someone, once we figure out what it is and where's it coming from, you ask a question. So how do you think you can change that? What would it look like to you? Like, what would life look like if this was different? Because it has to be their commitment. I could spend more time doing this. That's a great start. Okay. And now you start to dig into that. What would make you feel more fulfilled? So it's asking those questions, and it's guidance.
guidance. I always look at it as a therapist goes back and tries to help, coach just moves forward.
Yes. Yeah, it's a great way of saying it. Absolutely.
That's because even if you take the athletic coach, I don't know where you've been, but I know where we're going to go. We're going to get, this, we're going to get these goals, we're going to get this milestone, and here's how we're going to do it. So I always bring up, I started my business back in the 90s, and I wasn't paying attention. I was not loving myself. I was just focused on the business. I was working 14, 16-hour days. I wasn't eating well. I found myself 340 pounds, and the doctor said to me, if you don't lose the weight, you're not going to see, my daughter was just born, you're not going to see her graduate. I mean, I was a size 46-inch waist, 340 pounds. I'm now a 32. I'm 200 now. And so I said, that's all I need to hear. So I spent the next year and a half. I lost about 130 pounds, and people want the quick answers, right? They, I could just see it in their face when I tell them, how'd you do? Like, there's some secret, Al. Like, I just ate animal crackers or something. There's no secret. The reason how I lost the weight is discipline and focus. How does discipline play a role in your life, Al C. Wilson?
Discipline is everything. Discipline is how you take the things that you write down in your journal, and discipline is how you make it happen. So, and I think part of it is be disciplined doing the things that serve you. Be consistent doing the things that help you grow. So some people will say, oh, consistency or just discipline, but it's having a path and a system and a process where if I am disciplined doing these things, my life is better. I get these results. And although nothing is guaranteed, you've got a better shot at creating whatever it is you want if you're disciplined doing the things that serve you. And I don't like to say right or wrong because it's different for everyone, but the things that help you get to where you want to be. So for me, it started with discipline with taking care of my body. I spent so much time on my career and my family, but I was out of shape. I was overweight. I was exhausted all the time, and I was working myself to an early grave. So that discipline started with learning how to eat properly, how to exercise, continuing to grow. And then people started asking me, what did I do? And I became a personal trainer. And it was one of the most gratifying things that I'd ever done. So what did I do? I developed a plan, right? I developed a plan first. And then with discipline, I executed that plan. I said, okay, so, what does being a personal trainer look like? How much, what am I going to charge people? Where am I getting my education from? Like, what is the competition doing? Where would I train? So I developed my plan first, and I was disciplined in working that plan, and I worked my way out of my full-time job in 6 months.
Wow.
I replaced my take-home income in 6 months as a trainer, and I never looked back. I was able to work in my purpose, do something I love, spend more time with my kids when they needed me, and actually help people. So that's discipline in your plan. Discipline in the things that help you get where you want to be.
Yeah, planning, structure, organization, focus, all to me synonyms for discipline.
Yes.
And it's fascinating as I speak to more and more people about it, how the answers are different, but underlying they're very similar. Get that focus, get that restraint, self-discipline. It's all right there. What motivates you?
Service. I've always, even when I worked in corporate, the thing I loved about my job most was those coaching moments, those coaching opportunities. Being able to help someone perform better or accomplish something that they maybe didn't think that they were capable of. And it was people who worked with me before. They would come in a coaching session. We talk about performance, and they'd end up crying. It just happened, within 10 minutes of a session this weekend with someone who was coming in to talk about health and fitness, but within 10 minutes, she's crying because it's always connected to someone else. So service, man, and just helping people grow, it motivates me in my own personal growth. I'm on a mission to be better every single day. And that really motivates me when I know that I'm getting better.
Yeah, my first goal of this podcast is to grow and to learn from wonderful people like yourself. And when I feel that, you talk about helping others and service as your motivation. When I feel that I've had some small part, be it 1,000% of somebody's growth, it's so gratifying. It's wonderful. There's nothing like it.
I agree. I posted something, it may have been on either Facebook or Instagram, and someone that I worked with maybe close to 20 years ago sent me a message. And he told me, he said, I still remember something that you used to tell me when we worked together. I was his supervisor. And he remembered it almost word for word. I told him that when something happens to you that you think is bad, or, we say, man, I'm having a down moment. That just means that something really great is about to happen. It's preparing you for something great. It's that same philosophy, like nothing that ever left me was meant to serve me. Right. When something, whether you call it good or bad, when something bad is happening in your life, it's a level of awareness. It's waking you up for something else. It's preparing you for something else. It's like being in the gym. Man, when you lift, it hurts, but it makes you so much stronger. That's also one of the reasons why most people stop after 2 to 3 weeks, because it hurts. But it's that level of pain, and it's the discipline of going through that, knowing that, all right, I'm doing this and it may hurt in a moment, but it's going to help me become better. It's going to prepare me for the things that I want to do, regardless of what it is.
Well said. And how do you measure success, Al?
Success is different for everyone. Like you said, just a small percentage of improvement is success. Like 1% improvement over, a period of time just compounds, and it's discipline for me is success. If I said I was going to do something, journaling helps with that. I can go back and say, what did I really do today? You said you're going to do all this stuff, Al, but what did you really do? What did you really accomplish? And sometimes you don't get it all done, but there's still success in that because it's growth. So it's being disciplined, it's being focused. The goals may look different for everyone, but if you're getting something done that pushes you forward and helps you grow, that's success.
Yeah, it certainly is. I was so excited when you accepted this, Al. I've been very, very anxious to talk to you. I mean, your posts, your energy is so contagious and so inviting. I really, really appreciate your time. Now, do you work with people only in your general area? Do you do any virtual as well?
Yeah, virtual as well. Yeah, I coach people from all over. First of all, thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. I was excited to speak with you, and I thank you for having me on. Conversation's been great, but yeah, I coach people all over. That's a great thing about one of the things about the pandemic that changed it for all of us. It allowed us to help people, and people are more comfortable being online and getting some help from someone, no matter where they are. So.
And how can we get in touch with you? Anybody that's listening?
I would say go to my website, alcwilson.com. Anyone who's listening to the show now, I'll give Joe some information. But if you go there, it's I have an ebook that I just wrote that talks about, it's the ultimate guide to health and wellness. And it touches on the 8 different parts of our life, physical health, mental health. There's some information about meditation and journaling and, all those other things that can help you become a little bit better every single day. So alcwilson.com, or if you're on social media, it's, thealcwilson.com, because it's such a common name, not because I think I'm all that important, but I had a neighbor named Al C. Wilson. So,
Yeah, you're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'll make sure to
Yes.
put all those in the show notes. Al, thank you so much. And when I'm in your area, perhaps we get together and have a cup of coffee.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really appreciate your time. You be well.
You too, Joe.
Bye now.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.